Let's take you through some of what Draymond had to say, some of the money quotes, if you will, especially if you are just hopping in the car and you missed what was said in the 1 o'clock hour. Draymond with a lengthy 30 to 40 minute at least press conference where he took on all questions and we both thought answered with some really nice sincerity. But up to you to take in some of this and tell us what you think. We'd love your calls at 888-957-9570. One thing that has been played a time or two is what Draymond said with regard to his antics.
Let's face it, like, antics isn't something that got me here. And so when I look back on these situations, it's like, can you remove the antics? I'm very confident I can remove the antics. And I'm very confident if I do remove the antics, no one's worried about how I play the game of basketball. You know, nobody's worried about how I carry myself in the game of basketball, but it's the antics. So that's my focus. You know, it's not on changing who I am completely. You don't change the spots on the leopard. It's just not going to happen. And I'm not going to try to set some unrealistic expectation of like, who's this person going to be? Like, it's not real. And that's not sustainable. I've always said before, I know how to be me a lot better than I can be anyone else. But in saying that, can I accept the fact that my antics has been over the top? Of course. Can I remove those? Am I capable of removing those? Of course. I think without that, then I don't think there's much of an issue. But it's the antics that can go. And I've made a commitment to do things to make sure that those don't creep in.
You know, there's maybe in here a little lane of, I don't want to call it discord, but like when we heard Steve Kerr talk afterward, he mentioned that he has instructed Draymond, just stay away from the refs. Just stay away. And Draymond talked today about, I need to rework how I speak to refs. But he's also said a number of times today, like, Leopard's not going to change the spots. Like, he's sort of letting you know, I'm still going to be an energetic player. I'm still going to talk. That's what I do. That's who I am. So I'm not changing the basketball side. But as you, I think, have detailed really well today what the antics are.
Right.
Like in Sacramento, inciting the crowd
right
after getting tossed. So if Draymond's like, I can get rid of that. I can't get rid of what I do during the clock actually moving on the court. Somewhere in there, there's is that going to work? Like, is that all matching up? And that's what I'm curious to see. Like, okay, you remove the antics. Are you going to still talk to refs? Are you not going to talk to refs? If you do talk to refs, can you handle it well? Is something going to trigger you? That's what I want to see here in the next however many days until he plays basketball.
And I'll ask Steve Kerr how he defines the antics as it pertains to what Draymond was saying, because the antics can mean a number of different things. To me, stomping on Sabonis last year against Sacramento, that is the antics, because you didn't have to put your foot there. And even if you had to put your foot there, you didn't have to plant your foot on Sabonis and jump off him and do a split step in the air and then run down the court. To me, that is the antics. And choking Rudy Gobert as long as you did, that to me is the antics. And flail punching Nurkic after you felt like he was holding on to your hip, that's the antics. And barking at officials is the antics. And inciting the crowd after ejections in Memphis and Sacramento, that's the antics. So where does the antics begin? Where do the antics stop? And how much of that can he really take out of his game? Because whatever, you're going to get texts. And Draymond's he's going to talk to officials. There's a difference between talking to officials and berating officials to the point where you get a tech and you get 2 techs and you get ejected. That to me is where you fall under the umbrella of the antics. Draymond's got a lot of respect in this league among players, coaches, and the officials. If he learns to do it correctly, he'll get a lot more calls than he does through the antics.
Steve Kerr, we mentioned him asking Draymond to pretty much stay away from officials. Kerr will be on with us here in 26 minutes, but this is what he said about it at Chase Center earlier today.
It's a big part of it, and we've talked about it. Can he walk that line? Can he still play with fire and energy, but leave the officials alone? That's the challenge. It's going to be a big challenge, but we're going to ask him to do that. We need that so that we can focus on the game. His teammates need that so that we can focus on all of the little details that are eluding us right now, that are keeping us from being a consistent team. So that's what we're asking him.
Yeah, so Steve admits right there, like, we're asking him to do it, and it's sort of like, but I don't know if he can. He's like, that's a challenge, and it's not a small one.
Right. He's going to have to walk that fine line because you can talk to officials and you can, in the right way, express your feelings about individual calls or calls in totality. And if you do it the right way, you can avoid getting technical fouls and costing your team free points. I mean, everybody talks to the refs, and he's in a spot now where he's got to go about it in a different way, because the old way of immediately screaming at him and gesturing to him, that's not going to work. He's going to be on an even shorter leash than ever before, I would imagine, now going forward, because a lot of people don't realize this. I know you do, because your cousin was an NBA official, but the refs have meetings before the game. They go over game plans before the games. They talk about things to look for, players who tend to set certain screens that might be illegal, or actions under the basket that players do that you may want to keep an eye on, and also players who are known to talk to officials. You think that before every game they don't talk about Draymond Green?
Oh, gosh.
The three officials?
I don't even know if they need to anymore.
Right, but they probably say, all right, guys, what are we going to do tonight about Draymond? What's going to be our approach? How much leash are we going to give him? And if it's certain refs who've had a history with Draymond, maybe it's, hey, if it's Goebel or Foster or my beloved Zach Zarba, if it's, somebody who's had 50 or 60 Warrior games, they've got a history with Draymond.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they talk about what works and what doesn't work in terms of diffusing, because these refs don't want to go 1-2, you're gone. They don't want that. They know that that's not what the NBA wants.
No doubt. And then the other thing that I feel like has been sort of swept under the rug while Draymond is out, we talk about his defense that the Warriors miss. Look, I don't think it's a coincidence that Steph Curry has largely struggled with him gone. We watched that last year when Draymond missed a period of time, and then when he came back, it was like, poof, you're like, oh, there's Steph. So, sure, does Steph make Draymond better? That's obvious. I always have felt like Draymond makes Steph a lot better. So with him gone, that has put a microscope on Steph, and he has not played great. And so Steve Kerr had some interesting things to say about that dynamic.
I think we've thrown a ton on his shoulders. The burden that Steph Curry has on him for this franchise is unfair. The Draymond suspension. Draymond is the vocal leader of the team, obviously, right? He and Steph have kind of been co-captaining the leadership with our group for a decade. So without Draymond here, that adds a lot more to Steph's plate. We're trying to integrate, a lot of young players. Steph has a very unique style. It's the play after the play that matters with Steph. And we've put him in some combinations where the play after the play isn't happening. And that's frustrating for him. He's not James Harden or Luka. We're not going to just run a high pick and roll and spread the floor. And he's going to dribble 700 times. That's not his game. So he has to thrive off the ball just as well as he does on the ball. And frankly, we've had some combinations out there that don't recognize that as well as certain combinations. So when you mix in that and some of the other guys struggling, whatever, and occasional turmoil, that's a lot. That's a lot. And, this guy has carried our torch for over a decade, and everything we've built is really based on him. And so we're putting too much on his plate right now.
Okay. I take from that, there's a lot of, without using his name, there's a lot of Draymond in there.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot because
a lot of Draymond.
Yeah, nobody knows better how to get Steph the ball, where to get it, how to help Steph get open, the play after the play.
Right.
That's interesting to me.
Well, and a lot of that is the Draymond pick and roll with Steph, and Steph will dump it over the top. They'll double team Steph off of the screen roll, and you get it to Draymond behind the two-man double team, and now it's 4-on-3. So now it's that play behind the initial play, which was the screen and roll. And Draymond is better at that 4-on-3 than anybody else. He'll dribble toward the foul line and either make something happen, or it's one pass back to Steph and he shoots the three, or it's immediately back to Steph. Whatever Draymond does on the play after the play, like you're talking about. A lot of time it's the right play, and it results in a good shot. Steph Curry, in the 13 games without Draymond, 42% from the floor. From the floor, not the three. From the floor.
Yep.
36% from three, 88 from the line. He's averaging 23.7 a game. His numbers are down across the board without Draymond. And it's not only because Draymond, no GP2, now Chris Paul has missed a game.
It's all kinds of reasons.
Wiggins has virtually missed the entire season. It's been a lot of factors that has led Steve to say what he said about the burden being on Steph.
I think there's some fairness to this whole idea. Like he said that to us last week about Looney. Like he thinks that Looney's poor play is kind of a result of all of the normal stuff that's normally around him not really being there or not playing well, whether it be a Draymond, a Wiggins, whatever. There's some fairness there. I mean, a lot of times when you watch Warrior basketball, you're like, this is such a concert. And I couldn't even put my finger on what makes it all work together so perfectly. It's like a golf swing. You've got it, and then it's gone. You don't know why. Like, what the hell am I doing? And then all of a sudden, 18 holes later, that's what I've been doing wrong.
I hate that. You get to 17 and you finally hit one well.
It's always the 17th or the 18th hole. And you whack one right down the middle, and you go, damn it, that's what I've been doing wrong the whole day.
Oh, God.
That's what the Warriors need. They need an 18th hole swing. And they, make it all work together again. That's what they need.